Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so spoiler season is just around the corner. At the beginning of next week is when we see what all these brand new cards start to be in Aetherdrift, and a lot of really exciting ones are definitely on the way. If you missed my episode on Morrow's Aetherdrift teasers, make sure you check that out. Regardless, on this episode, I am diving deep into one, and many of you in the comments below yesterday had thoughts about a lot of those teasers. This one in particular caught my eye. Let's jump into it. So the one I am talking about is actually the very first one. Yeah, start off with a bang with a 13/13 vehicle with crew 2 that costs 1 mana to cast. Now, again, when it comes to Morrow's teasers, they are just that. They are like tiny hints. They are teasers. They are not spoilers. It's not like, here's the exact card. Yeah, that would be more so just Morrow's spoilers at that point. But yeah, so again, a 13/13 with crew 2 that costs 1 mana to cast obviously isn't just that straight up. There's no way it is just that. There has to be some kind of a downside or some kind of a requirement, something that makes it so that, yeah, this would not just be like one of the most played cards in Commander, because, I mean, I guess it would just destroy a lot of formats, but certain formats. But yeah, being able to be like, okay, yeah, turn 1, I play this 13/13, turn 2, I play this 2/2 or whatever, and I crew it and I hit you for 13. Okay, yeah, no, that's not how it's gonna go. So on this episode, let's dive down, and I'm gonna go over to a couple of creatures really quick that can illustrate what potentially we are going to be seeing. And somebody in the comments below had a couple good thoughts on this as well. Like, one person mentioned Death Shadow. Absolutely, that could be a solution to this. It could just be like a vehicle Death Shadow. A 13/13 avatar for a single black mana, gets -X for X is your life total. Now, when it comes to this card, I don't know. It's a really good point that this is a way you can go about it, because again, when it comes to like a 1 mana 13/13, we have an example of it, right? That being said, when it comes to like the life total thing, like Death Shadow doesn't see nearly any play, at least to my knowledge, in Commander, because yeah, like it's not gonna basically do much for most of the game. There's not a lot of decks out there that are trying to get their life total down to, I mean, basically like no life total at all, so that you could then, you know, turn this into a, I don't know, a 10/10 or whatever. Cool. In other formats, it can be incredibly valuable because you can get there pretty quickly, and having a really large creature in play for just 1 mana can be absurd. It comes to, and not that everything has to be designed around Commander, but many things are these days. In comparison to Death Shadow, which was designed a long time ago, it necessarily wasn't, you know, like the focus. And again, not that everything has to be designed for Commander, but I do believe like this big splashy card could be Commander specific, so I do think, and obviously use other formats as well potentially, but I do think they want to make it usable in Commander, and therefore, because of that, I think it's probably not like the Death Shadow route. It could be like a different thing, like Rex is this, or, you know, this is this. It could be like the number of cards in your hand, maybe, or something like that. That would still be pretty absurd. But, or like twice the amount of cards in your hand, or opponent's hands, or whatever it is. That could be a solution, but based off of life total, again, since you start at 40, and getting down to below, what, like 27, essentially? Not 27, down below 13. Yeah, that could be 27 is how much you have to lose. Down below 13 to actually kind of make it work. I don't see that direction it's going, but maybe. Okay, again, there's only so many creatures out there that literally have like absurd power for not a lot of mana cost. Another one which I mentioned yesterday, which is the first one that came to my mind, was Phyrexian Dreadnought, a 12/12 artifact creature for a single mana trample. Comes into play, sacrifice any number of other creatures with power total, any other creature's power total of 12 or more, or bury it. Again, sacrifice. It's a very old card from a long time ago, hence why it is, written so weirdly. That being said, this is another example of one that could be a potential solution, because again, there is that downside that is not inherently something that is kind of not a possibility, but not a usual build around in Commander. So I do think that this is a possible solution. It's not the one that I went with. There's one thing in the episode that I'm going to highlight that shows kind of what I think this might be. But yeah, basically, again, being a 1 mana 12/12 is absurd. And of course, having to sacrifice a total number of power, you know, 12 for your creatures, that is one way that you could make that work. Now, obviously, there's ways around that, like, hey, I've got, like, Torpor Orb in play, which stops ETBs. You're like, okay, cool. I pay 1 mana, get a 12/12, and it won't sacrifice because its ETB does not happen. So there you go. There's a ways around that. Do I think that that's going to be the solution? Potentially, but I've got potentially another solution to talk about. And it's not Ludovic's text subject. I just want to kind of talk about all the like 13-13 examples really quick for, 2 mana or less, basically, or post 10 power, I should say, not just 13-13, but this one is 13. A 0-3 defender lizard that costs 2 mana. You can then pay 1 a blue, put a hatchling counter on it. It's got 5 more hatchling counters on it. You remove all of them, transform it. Basically, I mean, there's other ways to get hatchling counters on it, right? Like, proliferating and such, but if you are actually paying that mana, that would cost, in total, 12 mana to then flip over to get a 13-13, trampling lizard. There you go. Absolutely massive, absolutely disgusting. I don't think that we're going to be getting, like, a transforming vehicle since it's already a 13-13 on the front, though. But interesting. I mean, it could be some kind of, like, I have to build a certain number of counters on it or something else happens that could be negative. Scourge of Skyclaves, again, yet another example of, like a small creature when it comes to mana value, but like power and toughness each equal to 20 minus the highest life total among all players. So that does affect your opponents as well. It impacts what their life totals are. Again, I don't think that we're going to be getting like a life total based thing, but I could be completely wrong on that. But this is yet another example, and one that does have like, hey, if you kick it, everyone loses half their life rounded up. It's quite a fun card. Very cool. Okay, the one, though, that I do think, and another one that did come into my mind a little bit when I first saw the teaser from Morrow, one that I do think might be a possibility is actually one that goes up a little higher in mana value, okay? Dagmoth Titan is actually one that came to mind, and this is one that I absolutely love this in my Mr. Orfeo Hotline Fling deck. Yeah, basically, hey, an 11-10 for just 4 mana. It's 4 Golgari mana. Cool. Demon, whenever attacks or blocks, sacrifice a creature. So there is a downside to it. That being said, is that enough of a downside on a 13-13 for 1 mana that has crew 2? I don't think just sacrificing, say, 1 creature or 1 thing is enough for that, but I do think that might be the direction that we go in. I don't know why, but that's just kind of like the initial thought of, okay, we have these different ways you can go about it. You can have ways that affect its power and toughness. You've got ways that can affect, again, like if it can actually be a creature that can do anything. You got ways that can affect if it can even stay in play when you play it, essentially. Or you've got things like, okay, a downside when you actually want to do what the card wants to in play. There are ways around actually utilizing the card in other ways. Again, like if you don't attack or block with this, it can just stay in play. Like for my Mr. Orfeo deck, I don't care if it attacks or blocks. Typically, I'm attacking with probably something else. I am doubling this thing's power up with Mr. Orfeo, and then I am flinging it at someone's face. So again, it doesn't matter that it has 11 power and 10 toughness, and it has a giant downside when it attacks. What matters is just the power. That is literally it, and its mana value that is low. So this one, and maybe that's just me wish casting it out there that like, ooh, maybe another card for my Mr. Orfeo deck. But I do think that might be a solution. Again, not necessarily the most clean one potentially, but I do think that it is one that could be out there. And I have been, very wrong on some of these episodes where I do predictions, but I also been absurdly close and correct on some as well. So maybe it'll land somewhere between, or maybe it'll be on one of the extremes. That being said, when it comes to what I am thinking with this one too, I do think it is time, and I do think Wizards will come back with another vehicle commander. So I do think that this one is going to be a legendary artifact vehicle. I do think that this one is going to have the text "can be your commander" on it. I do think we are getting a second competitor to Shorekai Genesis Engine for a vehicle commander, but obviously in a different way. Because it's a 1-mana commander, a 1-mana card, essentially, it's going to either be monocolor or it's going to be colorless, and we'll see where I land on that. That being said, again, Shorekai is an incredibly popular commander. It's one that's very good, even if it wasn't a vehicle, essentially, that was an 8-8. Like, just being able to, like, pay 1 tap, draw 2, discard 1, and make some tokens, that's very good already. You can do some broken and even, I was going to say crazy and even broken. I said broken, even crazy. But yeah, broken things with this, essentially. That being said, obviously, this other commander is going to be going about in a different mold. Like, this Shorekai, yeah, you can go, like, Voltron-ish, essentially, with it. But with the new one, if this is actually a commander and works in the way that I think it does, yeah, having a 13-13 up there quite quickly, you might be able to do some pretty absurd things with it. So with all that said, I'm going to introduce you to Cataclysm Engine. Yeah, I think that'd be something around this. And look at that, like face on like the vehicle, right? Like it's like, oh, it's a car. Oh wait, there's an evil face on it. I see you there. All right, 13-13 Ledger Artifact vehicle for a single colorless mana. Thank you to MTG.design for existing. You're an amazing website for making custom cards. If you never utilize that, please do. It's amazing. Whenever it attacks or blocks, sacrifice 2 non-token permanents, there is the big downside that I settle on, essentially. It has crew 2, of course, which again means tap any of a creature you control power, total power 2 or greater, essentially, and it becomes an artifact creature at the end of the turn, I should say, and it can be your commander. So again, things that Morrow said that we have, all right? Again, 13/13 vehicle, crew 2, single mana. That was what Morrow said. Morrow didn't specify it was colorless. I am going to specify that it is colorless. I'm not going to pick a certain color that this one might be. I mean, with what this does, it would probably be red or black, maybe, again, with those sacrificing, essentially. So it could be like a single red mana, single black mana, but I do think this one would be colorless. I think, again, like, if Wizards is designing this with Commander in mind and, like, trying to get, like, the most shocking kind of reveal with it, essentially, like another new really cool colorless commander. There's a lot of people out there that love colorless stacks, essentially, and getting a brand new one in there that's like, hey, 1 mana, but go crazy with this. Yeah, I do think that could be a solution. Again, when it comes to attacking or blocking, sacrificing 2 non-token permanents, that is a big price to pay. Again, I do specify they're non-token because, yeah, everyone knows these days that there's an absurd amount of ways just to make an absurd amount of tokens. I mean, maybe not in colorless necessarily, but there's so many ways these days. It's just like, oh, I made like 10 treasures. Cool, I guess I've got infinite sacrifice things if I need to do that, essentially. There's plenty of ways to sacrifice things, obviously, in colorless as well. Plenty of things you can get up there. I mean, think of like Icor Wellspring type cards you could really utilize with this that actually want to be sacrificed. I think that one's, what, 2 mana ETB, draw a card. When it hits the graveyard, draw a card too. So those kinds of things you can essentially build with this and utilize, again, just some other small creatures, some repeatable creatures out there to actually just get out and crew this up and swing pretty quickly. I mean, this is, again, if it is a commander that is 13 power, that is at the very least a 2-shot KO, right? Just already inherently with it. I don't know if it would have trample. Again, Morrow didn't specify that, but like I'm not thinking it would have trample. Like already just making it into a big beefy creature for just 1 mana and just crew 2 is already probably enough. Yes, there'll be a downside to it, but like make it a bit harder for people to take other players out with this. But yeah, obviously, like if you give this double strike, which there's only so many ways to do in colorless, and also kind of annoyingly, but also you're gonna have to commit to that anyways. In this, yeah, this isn't always going to be a creature. So, like, okay, I get Fire Shrieker out, which gives my equipped creature double strike. I attach it to my Cataclysm Engine while it's a creature. Cool, I go to combat, I swing, I get through, I take out that player with 26 commander damage. Yes, hooray, huzzah! And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, slight issue here after I took that player out. Next turn, it's no longer a creature, and that detaches. So, yes, having to keep, like, reattaching your equipment obviously could be a thing with this, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be worth it to pay whatever it is, 2 or 3 mana for Fire Shrieker's equip, essentially, to be like, oh yeah, now this is a 1-shot KO. Thank you. So overall, I do think that this could be a design for it. There's other options, obviously, and I would love to hear from all of you in the comments below what your thoughts are on any and all options. I mean, okay, first of all, number 1, do you think that this is going to be a legendary creature? Okay, do you think this will be legendary? Do you think Wizards will go with that? If so, do you think it's going to be colorless? Do you think it's going to be mono red, mono black, mono blue, mono white, mono green? Or I guess it could be a hybrid mana symbol for whatever reason if they really wanted to do that to give you 2 colors, okay? Or they invent like a 5-color symbol and they're like, oh, I guess technically this could have an activated ability on it too as well, right? And it could be a 5-color commander, so who knows? All right. That being said, kind of the main thing to determine, and again, a lot of great comments yesterday about like, you know, what it potentially could have to. Again, there's got to be some kind of a downside to it, right? It can't just literally just be like, hey, 13/13 for 1 mana and crew 2. Like, I know power creep has gotten pretty absurd over the years, but even that's a lot for Wizards, I think. I mean, maybe in 10 years we'd be getting that. But that being said, yeah, there's got to be some kind of a cost or a downside. Again, we talked about like Death Shadow, like, you know, life total based, or maybe like hand size based adjustments to that power and toughness. Also, of course, I mean, again, what's presented right in front of you right now, again, like, hey, if you're actually wanting to attack or block with it, cool, you got to sacrifice some things to do so. And again, actually making them sacrifice some worthwhile things, non-token permanents, and 2 of them, I think that is enough for like, hey, it's the, you know, it's the ticket cost essentially, right? Okay, to get on the ride, you actually need to pay with some non-token permanents, sacrifice those. And yes, they might be ones that you actually want to sacrifice like Icor Wellspring, but you got to set that up. And you probably need some recursion as well to make things go smoothly with this kind of a deck. But yeah, being able to actually have a commitment to have to take instead of being like, oh yeah, I made a bunch of little mirrors. Cool, good for me. I'll sacrifice my token mirrors. No, you need a little bit of commitment there. And maybe I'll be eating my words when Wizards just puts out like sacrifice a creature with this. You never know. Or again, is it some kind of like an ETB downside where again, like Phyrexian Dreadnought, you got to sacrifice equal to that power essentially to actually keep it in play. we shall see. So again, overall, I like how this turned out. Again, like, just literally start off with a bang yesterday with the teasers. If you haven't seen that episode, make sure you check it out. But yeah, basically, again, the very first one was like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's a heavy hitting thing. And of course, something that get players excited, which is why Marl put that as the very first one. So I do think that there can be a good amount of speculation around this one and a good amount of excitement when it does come out. And hopefully it's not just like, I mean, not that it can't be exciting still, especially for vehicle decks out there, but like, hopefully it's not like, yeah, 13-13, crew 2 for a single mana, it's uncommon, and it has this massive downside and no one will ever play it. Like when it attacks, skip your next turn or something. Like attacks are block, skip your next turn. So hopefully it's not that big of a downside where like players don't actually play it. Hopefully it's not overpowered to the point where it's like, yeah, throw that in any deck essentially. I hope it's something around this, and again, maybe it's just selfish for me where it's like, Mr. Orfeo could, well, use something like this. Like, yeah, just, you know, a 13-13 that I crew to and don't need to attack or block with, and essentially just hotline fling, you know, with my opponents. So there you go. And with that, this episode is come to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.